So one of the big discussions that is going on right now around BookTube is the topic of TBRs and if they are helpful or detrimental to our reading. Do they put too much pressure on? At the beginning of the month, Candy from The Great Literary Rabbit Hole put out a video talking about this subject. She's talked a lot about her TBRs and how they made her feel and the sense of obligation and all that kind of stuff. And then she ended up putting that video into kind of a tag format where she had some questions. She tagged me in it, and then my friend Debs from Raina Read Stuff also did that same tag. She answered Candy's questions as well. And so that's what I'm going to do today, is talk about the subject of TBRs. Are they helpful? Are they detrimental? Are they neither? What do I think about TBRs? Before I start, I want to define what TBR is for me, because I have found that that term means different things for different people. For me, TBR, so it's to be read, is what TBR stands for. They're the books that I might read. So it's a pile of possibilities, basically. But for me, it's actually 2 bookcases of possibilities. So I've turned my camera so you guys can see. These 2 bookcases are each 5 shelf bookcases. So I've got 10 shelves here of books that I've got from bookshops or little free libraries or bought online or thrift store, or somebody gave me or as a gift or whatever. And they're all books that I have not yet read, or I read a really long time ago and I want to reread, right? But they're books that I have not necessarily put into my library. Now, yes, we are sitting in my library, but this is kind of the portion of my library that actually is not permanent. Everything else in my library is here permanently, for the time being anyway. In my mind, everything here is going to be here permanently. But these ones are debatable. These are the ones, this is basically my library / bookstore that I can choose from as the mood suits me. Okay, so that's why I have all of those books, is because I'm a mood reader and I may be in one mood or another depending on whatever. And so I want to have a large selection to be able to choose from. I am feeling a strong urge to do a big unhaul because I feel like my reading mood has changed. But the thing is when I do that, sometimes then I regret it. So I've kind of been putting it off to see if it's just a thing. So we'll see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through these questions. There are 12 questions. The first one is, how many books are currently or normally on your TBR? There are approximately 300 books on these 2 shelves, anywhere from 260 to 300 at any given time, depending on when I do an unhaul. But I would say there's right around 300 right now. Now, I have other books in my library that I have not yet read, but I know that I'm going to want them in here permanently. At least, like, current me wants them in here permanently. So things like my Charles Dickens collection. I have not yet read every one of them, but I know that I'm going to want to, and I think that I'm going to want them here in my library permanently. So they're not on the 2 TBR bookcases over here. They are in a different part of my library. That is the more permanent part. So if you add in like every book in my house that I have not yet read, well, then we're looking at a couple thousand. But the things that are kind of on this, like, current pile of possibilities, yeah, about 300. Number 2, how do you choose sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Number 2, how do you choose TBR books? And have you ever gamified your TBR with like a prompt jar or some other kind of TBR game? All right, so like I said, totally mood read. If I'm doing some kind of like a monthly read along or reading event, like Historathon or the classics, challenge or something like that, then I will choose books from my TBR that go along with that, and I will move them to this cart right here. Okay, so I have this cart. You guys can't really see. There we go. I've got this cart here, and these are all books that are kind of like current, like this month or this season's pick from cart. And I haven't actually done anything with this cart since April because I decided I was going to just totally mood read in May. I'm kind of getting over that. I've done quite a few mood reads and now I'm like back to wanting to do more of my like research studies. So I probably will in the next couple of days go through and change out some of the things on this cart and put in some of the things that apply more to what I am currently studying. But that's usually what I do. I usually pick out the things that go with whatever's going on that month, stick them on this cart, and that is the first place I look, but I don't obligate myself to only reading from this cart, right? I can read anything I want, whenever I want, DNF it if I want. I don't have like strict rules for myself. I have done a TBR jar and I think that I want to do that again. I enjoyed that, but first I need to do a big unhaul and get rid of all the stuff that I don't think I'm gonna read, and then I can do my TBR jar. I kind of feel like some of the things on my TBR shelves need to be put into my permanent library. Things like, for instance, if you guys can see, here's one. This book here is called Ellis Island Interviews, and it's just a book of interviews of people who came through Ellis Island during the time, and it's just been compiled. I know that I want to keep that book. I know that I want to use it as a reference at the very least and probably read through it at some point in my life. However, I just read a book on Ellis Island interviews in the last year or so, and so I'm probably not going to want to read that again so specific. It's very possible that there's similar information, that kind of thing. And so I think like what I need to do is go through these shelves and pull out stuff like that I know at some point I want to read, but I'm not necessarily, thinking of it like, for instance, this book, Haven, is something that I want to read very soon because it applies to a recent book that I read, and, it's a fiction story and whatever. Like, I know I want to read that here soon. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want to keep on this shelf, right? So anyway, but once I do that, then I do think I'm going to start my jar game again because I did enjoy that. That was fun just to see like what random TBR books do I need to add to everything else that I have planned for this month. All right, number 3, I'm not sure I understand. It says, do you have reading areas of focus to choose books for? If yes, how many? So I think that might mean what areas are you studying? Like, what kind of stuff are you studying? So I'm always kind of background studying English history, the history of the kings and queens, and the history of certain eras like the Victorian era, Georgian and Regency era, medieval times. There's just certain parts of English history and Western European history, like the Celts, that just has always interested me. And so I do have places in my library specifically for those kinds of books. So that would be like over here on this side. The top shelf up there, see if I can get, there we go. The top shelf, whoa, baby. Okay. Yes. So the shelves over here, this side, on the top, I've got history in kind of vague order, and most of it is English history, and then that's like the 2 shelves there. And then below that, I've got like some biographies and just like some other nonfiction. And then over here on this one, on this side, the top shelf is everything that applies to Historathon, as well as the things that I am reading for my own children's classic read-along. So I do have certain small sections of study that I like to kind of always focus on. Up here, at the top of that shelf, that is all my Jane Austen stuff that's on the very tops of those shelves. That's all my Jane Austen collection. So it's her books, and then also books about her books, so books about her and such. So that is kind of an area of study that I'm always interested in. Behind me here, that is my collection on Nathaniel Hawthorne. So yeah, I do have certain areas of study, but I don't know how many. Number 4, does a TBR help you to focus? So does it help me to focus my reading? No. My little cart here does. But even then, the thing is I don't really think it's super important to focus my reading. I'm a very eclectic reader. I read all kinds of stuff, and I'm under no obligation to read anything. So to be able to focus on what I want to read, I just read whatever sounds good. And, and sometimes that means going on Amazon and doing a 2-day delivery because I need the next Emma M. Lyon right now. So that is, something that I'm currently able to do, is just to kind of purchase books if I need to. And I have this large, TBR to choose from. But I never feel the need really to sort of focus my reading on any certain thing. If I was maybe taking classes or preparing for something, then I think those are times when I would focus my reading. But right now, my focus is literally just read everything you can as much as possible. Stay off of social media so you have more reading time. I have other focuses so that I can be very free with my reading. Number 5, do you suffer from the book noise of a TBR? No, totally do not, because I have no obligation to these books. We are in no relationship whatsoever. So I can do whatever I want, whenever I want regarding these books. They do not make me feel stressed out or anxious at all, right? And it's just a mindset. It's just it's a personality and it's a mindset. I'm under, no one's authority really. I just do what I want. So no, I don't feel that way. Number 6, do you give your TBR a time limit? And does a TBR make you stress about reading quick enough? In the past, I have had that problem now and then. I do think of just, I'm not reading fast enough. I'm not going to get enough done. I'm not reading as many books this month as I read last month. And I can remember feeling that way and feeling like I was just trying to get through these. And then I would be frustrated. I'm constantly checking the back of the book to see how many pages there are. And I'm in that habit. When I start a new book, I always go to the back and see how many pages there are. And I wish that I didn't have that habit now. In the past, I would, because I'd be tracking, okay, I'm 25% done. I'm 50% done. Okay, I'm almost done. And, am I enjoying this book, or am I just trying to check it off my list? I don't want to approach reading that way. And it didn't used to bother me, and that's why I did it. It bothers me now, and that's why I'm trying to stop. Because I don't really want to approach anything that way. I just want to absorb and slowly take in all there is put before me, right? All that is available to me to learn and grow in and enjoy and find peace in and all that. I think that our Father has given us such a vast wealth of beauty free for the taking. And so I just want to absorb as much as I can. And so I think that mentality can come in, right? I just want to read as many books as I can because there's so many great ones. But I am trying to look at it from another perspective of, am I really absorbing and enjoying and thoroughly processing through this beautiful thing set before me? And that's a little bit more what I'm trying to focus on lately. Number 7, do you have rebellion syndrome? Not wanting to read a book because you put it on your TBR and now you feel you have to read it. I refuse to read you, no matter how much you scream out at me. I don't know. I think, I'll tell you what happens. Sometimes I will start a book and I realize I'm not in the mood for it. And so I know I do want to read it at some point, but I'm not in the mood right now. And so I'll put it back on the TBR shelf. And then every time I see that book, I remember, oh, I wasn't in the mood. I'm still not in the mood. I'm still not in the mood. I'm still not in the mood. I eventually unhaul it because I'm just never in the mood. But I don't think that's the case, right? Like eventually I might be in the mood. I put that book on my shelf for a reason. So I think that's what happens. It's not necessarily that I'm rebelling against reading it. It's that I'm convincing myself that I'm never going to be in the mood to read it. In which case, then I probably should, yeah, get rid of it. Or just force myself for a little bit to see if I can get into it and get past the mentality. But what I've really just tried to do is just commit to, all right, if I pick up this book and I start reading it, and I find that it is just not my cup of tea, then I just unhaul it right there. So it's not just taking up space on my shelf for 5 years and then I unhaul it. Number 8, do you keep books on your TBR until they are read or swap the TBR around regularly? Okay, so again, I think that's where we have different definitions of the TBR. When I was watching Candy's video, it looked like she takes books from one place and puts them in, like I do, where I take them from my shelf and put specific things on my cart. It looks like maybe she has kind of that same system. And so yes, like I said, I do swap this cart out on a regular basis, usually on a monthly basis. The top always has like the stuff I really think that I probably will read, or at least will want to read during the month. Then the second shelf has either overflow from the top, depending on how ambitious I was. I used to use it for things that I had purchased recently, and so I wanted to read them because I just bought them, but I have a different spot for that stuff now because I do like a monthly haul video, you know. And then the bottom actually is books that I'm unhauling and trading off. Number 9, have you ever killed a book by having it on your TBR too long? Yeah, I think that's what I was talking about in that previous question, where sometimes I just convince myself I'm not going to want it to read it because it's just been there forever and I keep rejecting it. And so I just have it in my mind that it's a reject. Number 10, do you have a tick list for your TBR to tick off books as you read them? Kind of. I have a system that I always do when I finish a book. First, I go and add it to my Book Crossing profile page because I have a list on there of everything I've read this year. Then I go to Goodreads and put it in there and write a review. Then I go to Storygraph and put it in there and do all my things and check my stats every time because I got to see if anything changed. And then I put it in this basket on my floor here next to the cart. And then that is the basket I pull out when I do my weekly reading check-ins. Once I have talked to you guys about the book, then I decide what I'm going to do with it. I will either unhaul it or I will put it into my library. And sometimes I will set it aside to send to my mom. So that's kind of my system just with like regular books. But now that I'm starting like my 50 before 50 challenge and that kind of thing, I will also update those journals and, you know, they're obviously lists. So as far as like, do I have them all written down? No. But when I start my TBR jar game, I will, because I put them all in a journal and number them, and then my jar just has numbers. So I gotta pull the number out, and then I gotta go find the book written down in my journal. Book number 7 or whatever is the one I pull off the shelf, because book number 7, you know, written in my journal. And I did it that way so that I could reuse the numbers, because if I write all the names of the books on a piece of paper and then I do a big unhaul of things that I'm sick of because I'm in a different mood now I have to go back through all of those papers and find all those books and, you know, throw away the paper or whatever. It's a lot easier for me, I guess. I don't know, I guess it would kind of be the same thing, but to pull out the number, and then if the book is gone, then I just cross it out of my journal, but I can save that number, you know, for the next round of my jar game when I decide to do another round. So anyway, that's why I do that. That's why I do it that way. Number 11, what one change do you think would help your TBR to be more fun? I think, well, just one change? Okay, I'm gonna give you more than one. One, like I said, I need to go through and cull some stuff. 2, I think that I need to take a little break from all of the different monthly events, right? Every month seems to have quite a few events, and I might take a little break from them. But I don't really know, because at the beginning of the year, I was so in the mood to do them, and I signed up, you know, in my little notes to myself for my goals for the year. I wrote down so many that I wanted to take part in, and I did for the first 4 months and loved it. Now I'm not so much in the mood anymore, but I might be in the mood again later on. So I don't really know. I don't know. I think that maybe that's just a seasonal thing, depending on what I'm in the mood for. But I think part of the reasons why I struggle to answer this question is just that my TBR is fun. So it's just not a problem to me. Number 12, final conclusion. TBRs fun or not? Yes, TBRs are fun, useful and helpful, and they make me feel like I have my own little library/bookstore to shop in to my heart's content. And if I find that my TBR is getting shabby or thin or boring, then I have a good reason to trade all these books online for other good books or go buy some more, which is what I'm planning on doing when I go over to England. I am taking very few belongings, and I am leaving lots of room in my suitcase because I really want to do some good book shopping and bookish stuff shopping. So I have not been, I have not been in the Jane Austen Center bookshop or the Jane Austen House Museum bookshop in several years, quite a while. And so I went to make sure and shop a little bit in those shops. So gotta have lots of room. And looks like, darn, I think I need to make space on my TBR shelf for that new stuff. All right, guys, I hope that was fun and enlightening. I will tag some people in this video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.